We set off on our trip early in the morning, the sun still hidden behind the horizon, casting a gentle glow over the roads. My father, always calm and steady, was driving as we left the familiar town behind. I watched the world change as we moved further away, rolling hills turning into mountains and cityscapes fading into wide-open fields. There was something magical about being with him, just the two of us, on an adventure without a set destination. It was like the world was ours to explore. Along the way, we made stops that didn't have any specific purpose, just moments to step out, stretch, and take in the beauty around us. At one scenic overlook, we stood together, gazing at the vast valley below. The wind was cool, the air fresh, and I felt a deep sense of peace. "It's nice, isn't it?" he said. I nodded, my heart swelling with gratitude. Our days were filled with quiet conversations, laughter, and simple pleasures, like stopping at a roadside diner for coffee and pie, or sharing stories of his childhood as we explored small towns. He always had a way of making every place feel special, even if it was just a tiny gas station or an old bookstore. We didn't need to do anything extravagant to create memories. The joy was in the shared experience, in the moments when time seemed to slow down, just for us. One evening, we watched the sunset together. We sat on the hood of the car, side by side, as the sky painted itself in shades of pink, orange, and purple. He didn't say much, but his presence was enough. It felt like everything in the world was right in that moment. We didn't have to speak for it to be perfect. As the days passed, our connection grew even stronger, not just because of the places we visited, but because of the time we spent together, uninterrupted by the usual rush of life. He was the kind of father who didn't just give advice or teach lessons. He showed me, through his actions, the importance of patience, kindness, and appreciating the little things. It wasn't about the big gestures. It was about the quiet moments, the unspoken understanding between us. By the time we returned home, I realized that the journey wasn't just about the destinations we visited, but about the way those days had shaped our bond. We had grown closer, not because of what we did, but because of how we were with each other. I knew that these memories would stay with me forever, a part of me that I would carry wherever I went. This story centers on the special, quiet moments of a father and child's journey together, highlighting the depth of their relationship and the beauty of spending time with loved ones. I hope this captures the essence of the connection you're looking for. The journey continued, and with each passing mile, we both found ourselves more at ease. The world outside was always changing, but in the car, with him by my side, things felt constant, familiar. We drove through towns that seemed to be stuck in time, old shops with handwritten signs and cobblestone streets that carried stories of years gone by. Every place had its own rhythm, its own life. And somehow, with my father, it felt like we were part of that rhythm, woven into the fabric of each new place. One afternoon, we found ourselves driving along a narrow coastal road. The ocean stretched endlessly on one side, waves crashing against the rocks, and on the other, the mountains rose steeply, their peaks dusted with snow. We didn't say much as we drove through this landscape of extremes, but the beauty of it all hung between us. Every now and then, he would point out something interesting, a secluded cove, a quiet beach, or a family of birds soaring overhead. It was like he knew the landscape intimately, as though every curve in the road had a story to tell. Every hidden spot held a secret. We stopped at one of the beaches, just to take in the view and breathe in the salt air. My father always had a way of making even the simplest things feel profound. We walked along the shore, our footsteps leaving temporary marks in the sand. For a while, we were silent, simply enjoying the peace that surrounded us. Eventually, he picked up a stone from the beach, smooth and rounded by the water. He handed it to me with a smile. "Hold on to it," he said. "This is a reminder that life, like the ocean, can be wild and unpredictable, but it always finds its way, just like this stone." I looked at the stone in my hand, thinking about his words. It was so simple, yet it made perfect sense. Life had its challenges, its highs and lows, But like the stone, we were all shaped by the experiences, the people, and the places that touched us. As we continued on our way, I realized how much I had learned without even realizing it. My father's wisdom wasn't always in grand speeches or life-altering moments. It was in the quiet teachings, the small gestures, the steady presence he offered day after day. We spent the final evening of our trip sitting on the porch of a small cottage we had rented for the night. The air was cool, and the sound of crickets filled the quiet. We didn't need to say much. We simply sat there together, watching the stars appear one by one in the vast sky above us. "Thanks for coming with me," he said, breaking the silence. "It's good to have you by my side." I smiled, feeling the warmth of his words, the truth in them. "It's been perfect," I replied. I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else. The next morning, as we packed up to head home, I felt a sense of peace in my heart. Our trip had come to an end, but the bond we had strengthened over those days would stay with me always. It was more than just a journey through beautiful places. It was a journey that deepened our connection, reminding me of what truly mattered in life: love, family, and the moments we share. And though our trip was over, I knew this wasn't the last time we'd embark on an adventure together. There would always be new places to discover, new memories to make. And no matter where life took us, I'd always carry with me the lessons, the love, and the comfort of knowing that my father was there by my side. As we drove back home, the familiar road seemed different now. Every twist and turn felt like a reminder of the moments we had shared, the laughter, the quiet exchanges, and the way we had both been fully present in each moment. The miles that had once felt so long now seemed short, as if the time we spent together had made each one stretch longer, rich with meaning. We talked more on the way back, about things we hadn't covered during our days of silence and reflection. My father told me stories from his youth that he hadn't shared before, about his first job, the pranks he and his friends used to pull, and the adventures he had before he became a father. It was as though a door had opened, and I was able to see him not just as my dad, but as a person with dreams, mistakes, and a life before me. The more he spoke, the more I realized how much I had yet to learn from him. His experiences, his perspective, everything he had gone through had shaped him into the person I admired, the person I was lucky enough to call my father. "Sometimes I wonder if I've taught you enough," he said quietly, his eyes on the road. "But I think maybe you'll understand things when the time is right." I didn't answer immediately, but I thought about his words. I knew he had taught me more than he realized, through his actions, his steady support, and his quiet wisdom. It wasn't always about telling me the right thing to do or offering advice at every crossroads. It was about showing me, through the way he lived, what it meant to be kind, patient, and strong. He had taught me more than I could ever express, just by being the father he was. "I understand more than you think," I finally replied. "You've taught me more than I could ever put into words." We drove on in silence for a while, the kind of comfortable silence that had become a part of our journey. It wasn't awkward or heavy. It was just a space where we didn't need to say anything to feel connected. The world outside moved around us, but inside the car, we were in our own little world. When we finally pulled into the driveway, it felt like we were returning from a dream. I could see the familiar house, the front porch, and the yard we had left behind days ago. But something had changed in me. I wasn't the same person who had left for the trip. I had learned so much about my father, about life, and about the beauty of simply being with the people you love. The trip wasn't just a break from the routine. It was a chapter that would stay with me forever. As I unloaded the car, my father came over to help. His hands, weathered by time, moved with an ease that spoke of experience. Even in the small, mundane tasks, there was a rhythm between us, an understanding that didn't need words. "Same time next year," he asked, his voice light with a smile. I couldn't help but grin back. "Definitely." And just like that, I knew that there would always be more trips, more memories, and more moments to share. It didn't matter where we went or what we did. What mattered was that we would always find our way back to each other, no matter how far the journey took us. As I walked into the house, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I had returned from the trip not just with stories of beautiful places and sights, but with a deeper connection to my father. Our bond was something timeless, something that distance and time could never fade. It was the kind of love that was built on shared experiences, quiet moments, and the knowledge that no matter where life led, we would always have each other. And I knew that this trip, this special time we spent together, would be something I would carry with me always. As the days passed and life slowly settled back into its usual rhythm, the memories of the trip remained vivid. It was as if I carried a quiet, constant warmth within me. The echo of the laughter, the peaceful silences, and the lessons my father had unknowingly shared with me. One evening, a few weeks after returning home, I found myself scrolling through the photos I had taken during the trip. Each one brought back a flood of memories. The moments we had spent in quiet awe of nature, the small adventures we had in each little town we passed through, the shared meals at diners where time seemed to slow down. But one photo stood out to me more than the others. It was a picture of my father standing at the edge of the cliff, overlooking a vast, endless landscape. He was smiling, looking out at the horizon as though he had found something far away, yet intimately familiar. It wasn't a grand moment, but it captured the essence of what I had come to understand. My father had always been present, always looking toward the future, even as he lived so fully in the present. I stared at the photo for a long time, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. The trip hadn't just been about the places we visited. It had been about the time we spent together, the bond we strengthened, and the way I had come to realize the depth of his love for me, not through words, but through actions and moments shared. The connection between us was simple but profound, a connection that wasn't defined by grand gestures, but by every small gesture of care and understanding. I picked up the phone and called him, not because I needed something, but because I wanted to hear his voice. I wanted to remind myself that even though life had returned to normal, the sense of closeness we had found on that journey hadn't gone anywhere. "Hey, Dad," I said when he picked up. "Hey, kiddo," he replied, his voice warm and familiar. "I was just thinking about the trip," I said, a smile tugging at my lips. "It's funny, but I feel like it's still with me. Like I can still hear the ocean or see the mountains." "I know exactly what you mean," he said. "It's like we left a piece of ourselves out there, scattered along the way." There was a pause, but it wasn't an uncomfortable one. It was as though we both understood exactly what the other was feeling. That trip had woven itself into the fabric of our lives, a quiet treasure that we would both carry with us, even as time moved on. "I was thinking," I said, after a moment, "about the next trip. Where do you think we should go next?" He chuckled softly. "I think we'll let the road decide again, don't you think?" I laughed, feeling the same sense of adventure stir within me. "Sounds perfect." And just like that, I knew that no matter where life took us, whether it was another road trip or simply a quiet afternoon spent talking, there would always be more moments to share. Our connection, built on years of small, meaningful moments, would continue to grow. There would be more lessons, more memories, and more trips, not just to distant places, but to the heart of what truly matters, time spent with those we love. I realized that no matter how much time passed, no matter how many journeys I took, the most important one would always be the one I took with him, the one that had shaped me, taught me, and reminded me that love, in all its forms, was something timeless and lasting. As I hung up the phone and looked out the window, I felt that same quiet peace settle in my chest. The adventure wasn't over. It was just beginning, and no matter where it led, I would always have my father by my side.